Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivacharya Astotra Sriti Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिचार्य अष्टोत्तर डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय। नामाचार्य हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरी गोधाम की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय। मथुरा धाम की जय। मायापुर नवदी धाम की जय। गंगा मई की जय। जमुना मई की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। समवेत भक्तवृंद की जय। All glories to Assembled Devotees. All glories to Assembled Devotees. All glories to Assembled Devotees. All glories to Guru and Gaura.
Jai, Jai, Jai. Thank you so much, Mahesh Panditji. Hare Krishna. Namaha, Namaha. Welcome to everyone for Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami and friends. Very fortunate to have Maharaj with us tonight. Thank you for being here, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. It is Friday, May 10th, 2024 in New York, and we're reading in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, chapter 31, and tonight starting with text number 20. Yes. So again, thank you for being here, everyone. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Just post the verse here in a moment. Thank you for your patience. So we're hearing the prayers of the child in the womb. Hare Krishna. Can everyone hear me all right? Yeah. All right. So hum basan api vibho bahuduk havasam garbhan nirjigamishi bahiranda kupe yatropayatam upasarpati deva maya mitya matirya danusang sriti chakrame tat. Therefore, my Lord, although I am living in a terrible condition, I do not wish to depart from my mother's abdomen to fall again into the blind well of materialistic life. Your external energy called Deva Maya at once captures the newly born child, and immediately false identification, which is the beginning of the cycle of continual birth and death, begins. As long as the child is within the womb of his mother, he is in a very precarious and horrible condition of life. But the benefit is that he revives pure consciousness of his relationship with the Supreme Lord and prays for deliverance. But once he is outside the abdomen, when a child is born, Maya, or the illusory energy, is so strong that he is immediately overpowered into considering his body to be his self. Maya means illusion, or that which is actually not. In the material world, everyone is identifying with his body. This false egoistic consciousness of I am this body at once develops after the child comes out of the womb. The mother and other relatives are awaiting the child, and as soon as he is born, the mother feeds him and everyone takes care of him. The living entity soon forgets his position and becomes entangled in bodily relationships. The entire material existence is entanglement in this bodily conception of life. Real knowledge means to develop the consciousness of, I am not this body, I am spirit soul, an eternal part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Real knowledge entails renunciation, or non-acceptance of this body as the self. By the influence of Maya, the external energy, one forgets everything just after birth. Therefore, the child is praying that he prefers to remain within the womb rather than come out. It is said that Shukadeva Goswami, on this consideration, remained for 16 years within the womb of his mother. He did not want to be entangled in false bodily identification. After cultivating such knowledge within the womb of his mother, he came out at the end of 16 years and immediately left home so that he might not be captured by the influence of Maya. The influence of Maya is also explained in Bhagavad Gita as insurmountable. But insurmountable Maya can be overcome simply by Krishna consciousness. That is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7:14. Mam evaye prapadyante mayam etang tarantite. Whoever surrenders unto the lotus feet of Krishna can get out of this false conception of life. By the influence of Maya only, one forgets his eternal relationship with Krishna and identifies himself with his body and the byproducts of the body, namely wife, children, society, friendship, and love. Thus he becomes a victim of the influence of Maya, and his materialistic life of continued birth and death becomes still more stringent. Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. As I was reading this, it reminded me very much of the prayers of Queen Kunti, where she prays that calamities would come again and again, because I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again, so that we could see you again and again. She's speaking to Krishna. For seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated births and deaths. So this is from the teachings of Queen Kunti, also first canto, chapter 8. I just wanted to read one paragraph, because here we're hearing about the prayers of the child in the womb. It's such a hellish place to be. But by the same token, it's so hellish that the living entity there is constantly taking shelter of the Lord, at least the pious living entity with some devotional credits. But then as soon as you come out, everybody's like, oh, isn't he cute? Isn't he wonderful? Feed him, let's celebrate, yay. And you become completely overcome again. You forget everything, Prabhupada says. So we don't want to forget. And Queen Kunti certainly did not. This is what Prabhupada says to just begin that section. I won't read very much, but just a little bit. Prabhupada says, generally those who are distressed, needy, intelligent, or inquisitive, and who have performed some pious activities, worship or begin to worship the Lord. Others who are thriving on misdeeds only, regardless of status, cannot approach the Supreme due to being misled by the illusory energy. Therefore, for a pious person, if there is some calamity, there is no other alternative than to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Constantly remembering the lotus feet of the Lord means preparing for liberation from birth and death. Therefore, even though there are so-called calamities, they are welcome because they give us an opportunity to remember the Lord, which means liberation. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Maharaj, we're glad you could be with us this evening. Would you care to share any thoughts on this verse? I see that you're not muted and that your camera is...
This is quite a turnaround. The child has been counting the days, when will I get out? When will I get out? And now he realizes that when I get out, it's going to be worse because I'm going to lose my spiritual consciousness. I'm better off here. So let me stay here. Let me stay here. That's his desire now. It's also this word is there, mithyamati, false consciousness or false ego. It's not that the world is false, but his consciousness is going to be false. That's going to be the problem. The world's not any worse. He's here in the womb, and he's surrounded by all sorts of ghastly things. But when he comes out, then this Nityamati is going to take over this false ego, this false consciousness that I'm this body and that everything is somehow relative to me. So let me stay here. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Tulsi Priya has a question. She says, apologies if this has already been asked. If a human birth is so rare, wouldn't pretty much anyone who gets a human birth have some measure of piety?
Sure. But then within that, you have to have more piety to be one of these fortunate living beings who prays this way.
Thank you. And Saraswati Mata says, pranams. It would appear that being put in a state of danger, uncomfortable surroundings, and pain leads to desperation and more inclination to be Krishna conscious. But why do we need to be held at so-called gunpoint to want Krishna? How can we not take him for granted to such an extent that we need to be made fearful in order to want to serve Krishna? We should naturally want to serve him.
Naturally, we want sense gratification. That's our acquired materialistic nature. So we'll make that our project to enjoy, to enjoy, unless we're held at gunpoint. When we're under severe adversity, then we may say, all right, I surrender, God help me, or what have you. But till then, let's enjoy. And we see that people surrender to God. And then when the sense gratification comes back and the clouds are dispersed and the sun is shining, and he's off to the beach again. So this is our conditioned life. Our natural consciousness is spontaneous attraction to Krishna, but our disease consciousness is spontaneous attraction to Maya.
Maharaj, it's interesting to find out from this verse that we have an original clear Krishna, clear consciousness while we are in the womb. And I didn't realize that. It's interesting.
Some living entities, it's qualified like that. It's not guaranteed, but that opportunity for a fortunate living entity is there.
Tulsi Priya says, we're in the jaundiced condition, so the sweetness of devotional service is bitter to us. I had a question. Maybe I hope this isn't a frivolous question, but I was also thinking of Shukadeva Goswami before I even read Prabhupada's comments here. And it said that he did indeed come out after 16 years of being in the womb. And because that pastime isn't fresh in my mind, how did he arrive at that 16-year date to think, okay, I can leave now? Was it that he had heard the Bhagavatam from his father by that time and just was, mature enough to think?
That's what we hear.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, there is a story behind that, that he wanted to make sure Krishna would come and call him up or make sure that he won't be touched by Maya. So that's how he came out.
But explicitly it's said that he heard the Bhagavatam. There's one account how, yes, they've arranged all this, Bhagavatam chanting and so on, that the child would come out. But in any case, that's what happens. He hears the Bhagavatam and thinks, all right, now I can go.
If it's all right, I'd like to read the Srila Vishwanath has a very short purport on this. It's quite lively. He says he's taking the part of Krishna, and he's presenting his purport as a conversation between Krishna and this suffering jiva in the womb. And first he takes the side of Krishna. You chose me by bhakti, but you are agitated by suffering. Because you requested to get out, now I will take you out of the womb. Now as the jiva, no, don't do that. I don't want to get into a condition of suffering in the outside world. In that place, the Lord's Maya pervades all beings who have gone outside the womb. By her, the false conception of I am the body and repeated birth takes place. Krishna, Krishna. Mahesh Panditji, would you like to read our next verse, verse number 21? Would that be okay?
Yes, Prabhu, yes. 21. Tasmadaham vigata viklav udashrisha rishya atmana manasu tamasaha suhrudatanaiva bhuyo yatha vyasane me tadane karandam mame bhavishya dupasadi ta vishnupadaha. Therefore, without being agitated anymore, I shall deliver myself from the darkness of nations with the help of my friend, clear consciousness. Simply by keeping the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu in my mind, I shall be saved from entering into the wombs of many mothers for repeated birth and death. The miseries of material existence begins from the very day when the spirit soul takes shelter in the ovum and sperm of the mother and father. They continue after he is born from the womb, and when they are further prolonged. We do not know where the suffering ends. It does not end, however, by one's changing his body. The change of body is taking place at every moment, but that does not mean that we are improving from the fatal condition of life to a more comfortable condition. The best thing is, therefore, to develop Krishna consciousness. Here it is stated, Upasadita Vishnu Padaha. This means realization of Krishna consciousness. One who is intelligent by the grace of the Lord and develops Krishna consciousness is successful in his life because simply by keeping himself in Krishna consciousness, he will be saved from the repetition of birth and death. The child prays that it is better to remain within the womb of darkness and be constantly absorbed in Krishna consciousness than to get out and fall, a victim to the illusory energy. The illusory energy acts within the abdomen as well as outside the abdomen. But the trick is that one should remain Krishna conscious, and then the effect of such horrible condition cannot act unfavorably upon him. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that one's intelligence is his friend, and the same intelligence can also be his enemy. Here also the same idea is repeated. Suhadatam naiva, friendly intelligence. Absorption of intelligence in the personal service of Krishna and full consciousness of Krishna always are the path of self-realization and liberation. Without being unnecessarily agitated, if we take to the process of Krishna consciousness by constantly chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, the cycle of birth and death can be stopped for good. It may be questioned herein how the child can be fully Krishna conscious within the womb of the mother without any paraphernalia with which to execute Krishna consciousness. It is not necessary to arrange for paraphernalia to worship the Supreme Personality Godhead, Vishnu. The child wants to remain within the abdomen of his mother and at the same time wants to become free from the clutches of Maya. One does not need any material arrangement to cultivate Krishna consciousness. One can cultivate Krishna consciousness anywhere and everywhere, provided he can always think of Krishna, the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, can be chanted even within the abdomen of one's mother. One can chant while sleeping, while working, while imprisoned in the womb of the while outside. This Krishna consciousness cannot be checked in any circumstances. Yeah, it cannot be checked in any circumstances. One can chant, okay, so let's see. This Krishna consciousness cannot be checked by any circumstances. The conclusion of the child's prayer is, let me remain in this condition, although it is very miserable. It is better not to fall a victim to Maya again by going outside. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurum Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So Prabhupada here tells us that there is no prerequisition of chanting Hare Krishna mantra. You can chant anytime, anywhere, even in the womb of the mother. So by reading this, it clear out the idea of being in the womb of the mother or outside. Prabhupada says it doesn't matter wherever you are. That's what it means. Just chant Hare Krishna and the influence of Maya will go away. So, of course, they compared here the position in mother's womb and being outside. But if you chant Hare Krishna when you come out and take the shelter of Krishna, then there is no problem. Okay, and then here it says, clearly stated, without being unnecessarily agitated. If you take to process of Krishna consciousness by constantly chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, the cycle of birth and death can be stopped for the good. So that's what we want. Actually, the human form of life is to get out of this birth and death cycle and to go back in our original position as a servant of Krishna, servant of Krishna, and serve him eternally to him, to Krishna. So, very interesting. And thanks to Srila Prabhupada for his nice purport. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai Mahesh Pandit Prabhu. Thank you. Maharaj, would you care to speak on these points?
In Prabhupada's purport, Advaita Pratiyata, devotional service can't be prevented by any condition. In the womb, outside the womb, anywhere, the devotee can cultivate Krishna consciousness. The Atmaiva Hyatmana Bandhur Atmaiva Vipuratmanaha. The mind can be the best friend, or it can be the worst enemy. So here the devotee says, with the help of my friend, my clear consciousness, my purified mind, I'll engage in devotional service. When he comes out, his mind is going to betray him. His mind is going to act, his friend is going to become his enemy, and try successfully to dissuade him from Krishna consciousness or cover his Krishna consciousness. This is the the difficulty, but if one is determined, Prabhupada says, then one can be Krishna conscious under any circumstances. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. As you were speaking, I was thinking of the pains of birth being only part of the fear of taking birth again, because that the other half of it, which you just mentioned, is that the mind takes over again and you become covered again, and it's just that's the subtle part. The subtle pain of birth is the forgetfulness. Prabhin Krishna Prabhu has an extensive set of things in the chat. I'll do my best to read it. He says, Shukadev wanted assurance from Krishna that Maya wouldn't touch him once he came out. Once Krishna gave the assurance and he went straight to the forest. The father couldn't tolerate the separation and called for him to come back, but he didn't. So he sent 2 of his disciples to the forest who were cutting wood. While cutting, they chanted the verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. Aho bakiyam stanakala kutam. Shukadeva was captivated and was brought back to Vyasadeva to hear the Bhagavatam. This is how I heard. And he continues here. Yang pravrajantam anupetam apetakritam dvaipayano varahakatara ajuhava putreti tanmayataya praravo bhinedus tang sarva bhuta hridayang munim anatosmi. Sri Sutta Goswami said, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto that great sage Shukadeva Goswami, who can enter the hearts of all. When he went away to take up the renounced order of life, sannyas, leaving home without undergoing reformation by the sacred thread or the ceremonies observed by the higher castes, his father Vyasadeva, fearing separation from him, cried out, O my son! Indeed, only the trees, which were absorbed in the same feelings of separation, echoed in response to the begrieved father. Thank you, Praveen Krishna Prabhu. Saraswati Mata now has a question. Bhakti has to be causeless and not induced by fear. So how to have causeless devotional service?
It appears devotional service is by nature causeless. It's the inherent consciousness of the living entity, but there can be causes for our taking shelter of that Krishna consciousness. Arta, artarti, jigyasu, gyanica. These are all causes that may bring one into the association of devotees. Even the association of devotees can be considered a cause for Krishna consciousness. Cause means not that it instills Krishna consciousness, but it reawakens Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is causeless, it's always there, but it can be awakened by different circumstances or by good fortune.
Yeah, thank you. Maharaj Gupta Prabhu says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, is there a chance that fortunate people will be blessed with the same clarity of thought just before death as they are before birth, making full surrender to Krishna easier at that critical time?
Yes, certainly. We see that a fortunate person somehow or other remembers Krishna. Someone told me a story, it was a dramatic story of a devotee, one of our ISKCON devotees. When I heard the story, I was told who it was, but I've forgotten how he was traveling in a train, a long-distance train in India, and a person in his compartment began having some kind of attack, physical, a heart attack or something like that. And the devotee just began chanting. The devotee saw that nothing could be done. He just chanted loud, very loud, chanted the holy name of the Lord. and the man expired. And some other passenger exclaimed, "Do you realize what you've done? Do you realize what you've done?" This person left the world hearing the holy name of God. So just by good fortune, that can happen. Or we see sometimes that a person who's had good fortune remembers the Krishna consciousness. We've seen some of our God brothers who had left Krishna consciousness, and then just at the very end of their life, it all comes back. They leave behind whatever nonsense they'd embraced, and they come, they take shelter of Krishna despite everything. Yes, at the very end, one fortunate person can. That's mentioned also in regard to Maharaj Kadvanga. He had just a moment left, and he thought, "All right, let me surrender to Krishna." He wasn't away from Krishna consciousness, but he thought, "All right, this is it. Let me surrender to Krishna."
By hearing all these things, the things happen to a devotee, or somehow it increases our faith.
Maharaj Gupta says, "Thank you, Maharaj."
Hare Krishna.
And Radhesha Prabhu is here, and we're now at text 22, which has no purport. So if you could read that, and until you get to a purport, that will be just great.
All right. This is 22. Kapila Uvacha Evam Kritamatir Garbhe Dashamasya Stuvandrishi Sadya Kshipatya Vachinam Prasutyai Sutimarutaha. Lord Kapila continued, the 10-month-old living entity has these desires even while in the womb. But while he thus extols the Lord, the wind that helps parturition propels him forth with his face turned downward so that he may be born. Parturition means the process of birth, if I'm not mistaken. Next verse. Tena vasrishta sahasa kritvavak shira aturaha viniskramati kritrena niruchvaso hatasmritihi. Pushed downward all of a sudden by the wind, the child comes out with great trouble, head downward, breathless, and deprived of memory due to severe agony. The word kritrena means with great difficulty. When the child comes out of the abdomen through the narrow passage, due to pressure there, the breathing system completely stops, and due to agony, the child loses his memory. Sometimes the trouble is so severe that the child comes out dead or almost dead. One can imagine what the pangs of birth are like. The child remains for 10 months in that horrible condition within the abdomen, and at the end of 10 months, he is forcibly pushed out. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord points out that a person who is serious about advancement in spiritual consciousness should always consider the 4 pangs of birth, death, disease, and old age. The materialist advances in many ways, but he is unable to stop these 4 principles of suffering inherent in material existence. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. This reminds me of our reading in Caitanya-caritamrta yesterday, that people make so much advancement, the materialist advances in so many ways, but can't stop these 4 principles. And one who is serious, then Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Doshanudarshanam. They want to get rid of these real problems of existence. Birth, death, old age, and disease. These are real problems. These are the things that an intelligent person addresses and recognizes as the real causes of suffering, not the temporary whatever it is that everyone is making a big deal of at the current moment, whether it's a political race or your high school graduation or all these small things. The real problem is that you're born and you die, and the soul doesn't want to do that. And the process of birth and the process of dying come with a kritrena, with great trouble. It reminds me of the verse Aruhya kritrena, padam param padam. Yeah, the verse is running away from me, but I think we're all familiar. Padam padam yad padam natesham. So much difficulty comes with this process of material existence in general. Oh no, that's patantyadho narati yushmadangraya. That's the one. Yenyeravindaksha vimuktamaninas. That's the verse I'm thinking. That's the kritrena that I'm just looking at it now, trying to see why it jumped into my head. Well, while I read the verse, I turn it over to you, Maj. I don't have much to say on this topic. It's a little close to home, as I just watched my child be born about a week ago, and it was very interesting. You know, the child comes out, and what Srila Prabhupada mentioned was that the child can even be born dead or not breathing. This very difficult situation, and I was thinking that we have in the medical field, there's something called the APGAR test, which tells you how healthy the child is. I think it's scored out of 9, and of course, dead being 0. And children often don't get full score. It's very uncommon for a child to get the highest score, because the process of birth is so traumatic that the child's color will be pallid and purple. The child will maybe not cry right away. My child came out silent. It took a little while before he got his voice even to cry, because the throat is blocked up with, who knows, amniotic fluid and all kinds of trouble. And anyway, we'll see in the next verse a nice description of how the child is wriggling around like a worm. But yeah, that's all I have. Thank you. I
was reminded of how sometimes it's depicted that the child is all comfy in the womb. You know, such a nice arrangement is made for him so that he'll be protected and come into this world. But the Bhagavatam tells the real story, that he's in such an utterly miserable condition. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Saraswati Mata says, once a person argued that in cesarean birth, you can control the birthing process, including the time of birth and less stress for the child. But my niece almost died in the operating theater, needing blood transfusion during COVID time, with doctors struggling to control anything.
As far as I know, the main thing that they control is time of birth, so that the doctors can have a regulated life. Become quite the common operation for that, among other reasons. But yes, you can't. There's no guarantee that because you have the advantage of performing a cesarean, there'll be no trouble for the child. To be ripped out of the womb by cesarean is no fun either. We're sure.
Yeah. Murai Gupta Prabhu says, how are these 10 months calculated? We say 9 months these days.
I don't have an answer.
If you calculate a week, 40 weeks, that's... Oh, anyway, I thought I had an answer, but...
I think I saw something, in fact, that it has to do with when you start counting. They don't start at the time of conception. There's they count at a particular point along the way. I've forgotten the details, but that would be the reconciliation. It depends when you start counting.
Tulsi Toshini Mataji, you have a hand up.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, just by experience. Yeah, it's actually 10 months, something like that. It's more than 9 months. Anyway, just witness for that.
Okay.
It's too damn long no matter what. Suffering, all those suffering and suffering. The child is counting the days. When will I get out? When will I get out?
Saraswati Mata says, they cannot count the true time of conception as they estimate the time based on the last menstruation cycle. All right. We have some time for another couple of verses. Shara and Doug, are you able to read?
Sure.
So we are at text 24.
Correct. Just read 24 and 25, correct?
Yes, please.
Okay. Patito bhuvya shrinmishra vishtabur iva chestate proruyati gate jnane viparitam gatim gataha. Thus, the child thus falls on the ground, smeared with stool and blood, and plays just like a worm germinated from the stool. He loses his superior knowledge and cries under the spell of Maya. Text 25. Parachandam na vidusha pushyamano janena sa anabhipritam apana pratyakyatum anishvara. Translation. After coming out of the abdomen, the child is given to the care of persons who are unable to understand what he wants, and thus he is nursed by such persons. Unable to refuse whatever is given to him, he falls into undesirable circumstances. Report. Within the abdomen of the mother, the nourishment of the child was being carried on by nature's own arrangement. The atmosphere within the abdomen was not at all pleasing, but as far as the child's feeding was concerned, it was being properly done by the laws of nature. But upon coming out of the abdomen, the child falls into a different atmosphere. He wants to eat one thing, but something else is given to him because no one knows his actual demand, and he cannot refuse the undesirables given to him. Sometimes the child cries for the mother's breast, but because the nurse thinks that it is due to pain within his stomach that he is crying, she supplies him some bitter medicine. The child does not want it, but he cannot refuse it. He is put in very awkward circumstances, and the suffering continues. I don't really have any comments, but I actually do have a question for maybe Maharaj. Just reading this, I'm wondering when, because he's helpless, when does karma start to be involved in this? Like, he is unable to refuse whatever is given to him, and he falls into undesirable circumstances. But as a child, because he's innocent, does he accrue karma, or when does that start happening?
Interesting question. Of course, he's suffering the results of karma. That's clear. Uh, but is he accruing karma, and how? He doesn't have much scope, does he? He's described as an Ishvara. An Ishvara means he's not the controller. He has no ability to control things. So therefore, at least in law, children are let off for things that an adult would be punished for. They're considered innocent because, well, they don't have the faculties of an adult. But we've seen that children now are going beyond, infants at this stage, but children can be cruel and mean and in so many ways. They can afflict other living entities. That Rishi Mandukmuni was piercing an insect with a straw, and children can be very cruel. Certainly, they're and Mandukmuni was held to account by Maharaj that this is what you did, and the Muni protested, "I was just a child," but no, that was the law of nature. But when that kicks in is an interesting question, but I haven't seen an explicit answer to it.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Radhesha Prabhu says, wait, Saraswati is above that in the comments here. I had a cousin who was born with less oxygen and had brain damage with an IQ of newborn for his entire life. So this means he cannot commit sins in this lifetime and can be eligible for liberation. He recently died at age 52. Family was very devotional.
Yes, I mean, as far as eligible for liberation, that's another question. But he's restricted. He can't commit sinful activities. He can't do anything for upliftment, but he can't do anything sinful. That's the position of the living entities in the lower species of life. They're automatically promoted from one species to the next because they don't do anything wrong. They don't have the scope for doing anything wrong. So that sometimes happens to the human being also. He's so restricted by his circumstances that he can't do anything wrong. And we see it, of course, as a miserable, terrible condition, which it is. We see people who have that kind of impairment. They're so restricted, and so it's miserable. It's suffering for them and for others. But at least they can't do anything sinful. But that doesn't mean that now they attain freedom from material existence. It just means that their stock of sinful activities is greatly reduced and they can't accumulate more. That was Narad Muni's punishment for the Nalakuber and Manigriva. They were put into the form of trees. You're so fond of chasing after young girls, enjoying sense gratification, now become trees. Of course, they were fortunate, and as you said, that person was born in a devotee family. So even involuntarily or without his own effort, he would have heard the chanting of the holy name. He would have gotten prasadam. He would have gotten. So even though he was so unfortunate, he not only couldn't perform sinful activities, but he got good fortune by virtue of his parents or those surrounding him. So certainly he must have swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahatopaya. Even a slight bit of devotional service or a slight bit of contact with devotional service can deliver one from the greatest danger. So there's despite the misfortune of that kind of life, there's a good fortune also.
Saraswati continues, he always clapped when we did kirtan and smiled.
Mm-hmm.
Krishna. Radhesha Prabhu says, I was told of an ISKCON astrologer who arranged a C-section for the child to be born under auspicious conditions. It was that important for him to make sure Jupiter was in the first house on the chart.
Hope everything turned out okay.
It almost seems like the knowledge of astrology put him in a position that he had to jump extra hurdles to enforce that. It almost would be better not to know. Then you can just live naturally and chant Hare Krishna. It almost puts you in a position that now you have to jump through extra hoops to put things in the correct spot.
No one can outwit destiny. That's one thing. We may think that we'll calculate the chart and we'll rejiggle it, we'll redo it by arranging an auspicious time for a C-section. But whatever karma the child is meant to have will follow him. It can't be, what's the word, obviated or avoided by some clever means. By some clever means. Here, Hiranyakashipu was very clever. He arranged things in such a way that he wouldn't die, but then he was killed anyway. Of course, that was demonic, but still, we're not the controllers. We're not the controllers. And sometimes we think that way anyway. Not as parents, I'll get the child born at this auspicious moment, but later in our life, we're told if you wear this gem on this finger, if you perform this yajna, and we think, yes, I'll wear this ring on this finger, I'll perform this yajna. But finally, everything is controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Kanama Maharaj in his last months visited an astrologer in Vrindavan with me, and he told the man, nice man, told him from the very beginning that my goal is just to know. I don't want to extend my life. I just want to know sort of what's in store, get a picture of the timeline and what's going to be happening. As a manager, his nature is to deal with things. So he told him that. And so he got quite an accurate picture, in fact. The astrologer was offering that this yajna, you can do this yajna, I'll do it without charge, and so on. And Maharaj said, that's not why I came. I'm not looking to extend my life. Not at all. Not looking to extend it, just to get some information so I know what's coming. And the man was pushing. Finally, Maharaj said, all right, I'll think about it.
Thank you, Maharaj. Rabin Krishna Prabhu says, some devotees who were students made a video showing the pains of birth. Other students who were envious of the devotees took the same video and showed how the child enjoys in the womb and the wonders of birth. Seems they do not want to accept birth as painful.
They can make another video showing how nice death is, how pleasant it is to get old, the joys of disease. They're fools.
Hare Krishna. Speaking of Hare Krishna, it's time for kirtan, and Vijay Krishna Prabhu is here. Prabhu, if we insist that you lead kirtan, would you be able to?
Yes, Ekendra Das Prabhu, can you hear me?
Very nicely.
What about my Mridanga?
Also very nicely.
So, thank you very much for the invitation, Maharaj. My humble obeisances, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Oh, without Mridanga, I'm sorry, just chanting. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paribrajikacharya Ashtotar Sata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nama Acharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath, Shamakund, Radhakund, Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Mayi Ki Jai, Jamuna Mayi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you, Vijay Krishna Prabhu. And why were you unable to play the mridanga?
I'm sorry. I'll tell you later.
All right, then. Fair enough. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj Ki Jai.
Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Mahesh Pandit Prabhu.